Right. The thing about abandonment
Uh,
issues, because I too suffer abandonment issues, is that we don't realize that we unconsciously seek that in other men. Right.
yes,
It's like
yes,
it's like
yes.
if they're like unavailable, it's like, oh, it's okay. And it's kind of like,
Hmm.
but
The
that's
same excuse you gave your dad, now you're giving a
the
companion.
relationship, right? And it's not
Yes,
healthy, right? So once you see that
yes,
the person is unavailable or not wanting to be available to you, because there's a difference between being busy and unavailable. But
absolutely,
when they're
absolutely.
willingly
There's a difference.
unavailable, that means there may be some abandonment issues from your childhood that's tied to that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we tend to linger that. It's so true. It's like that hopeless child that still wants their daddy to show up. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Lorene, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I want to interview a wonderful woman of God. She's been a social worker for over 14 years, and she's also a realtor. So, Miss Niokie, please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Niokie, and I have been doing clinical social work, doing therapy. With I started out with children,
Mhm.
and then I um, transferred into doing outpatient with couples and adult individuals. Um, and then I actually started real estate last year. So now I'm into the field of real estate as well. I have not stopped doing therapy because that's my love.
Right. Yeah. 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 And that's something that I admire. I feel like some of our background is very similar, and I feel like the more trauma that you experience, the more willing your heart wants to be to help other people that's experienced trauma.
Yes, yes,
So, what brought you
absolutely.
into the therapy field?
Honestly, trauma,
Right.
my own trauma, my own childhood trauma, and always having this sense of wanting to help others. And as a little kid, my grandmother worked in this program called the 4-H program, where she would go to um, low economic individuals' homes,
Awesome.
teaching them about nutrition, helping them with community resources. And
Awesome.
during the summertime, when I was staying with her, we had to tag along, um, and she put us to work. And I think because of some of my trauma and what I saw she was doing with her families,
Awesome.
feels something in me to want to do the same thing. So
Won-
that's where the giving back and helping others came from.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, let's talk about your journey with like God. Um, how was that for you?
So that has been, I grew up in a family church. My grandmother's father, my great grandfather, has his own church, or it's a family church. So that was something that was instilled in me as a little kid. Um, but as teenagers and becoming adults, you start to do your own thing. Um, and I didn't quite stay connected in going to church or studying the Bible. It wasn't until I became older, even doing therapy, I started to build a relationship with God. When I started into therapy, I started back doing um, reading my Bible and trying to connect spiritually.
So, you said therapy, was it for yourself, or you talking about as you were helping your clients, you started to trying to
As
build?
I was helping my clients. Because you know what I realized, Dr. Laurie,
Mhm.
is that doing therapy, if you don't help or you don't do self-development on you,
Right.
how can you do that or teach someone to do that for themselves?
Absolutely. Right.
And the interventions that we give during therapy, um, knowing that they actually work, because I did the work too,
Right.
um, helps me to be a more, um, I would say, in tune therapist.
Yep. I agree. I agree. There's a lot of people out here that aren't doing the work within themselves. And honestly, I feel like that transfers to their clients.
Absolutely.
Because like clients can kind
Absolutely.
of sift through like authenticity, you know,
Yes.
feel that.
Yes.
Like, are you really, so it's important that we don't know it all and that we
Yes.
do work on ourselves, our like, inner selves in order to really, really help other people. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of times our clients could put a mirror. It's like a mirror that we're looking at, and it's like, oh wow, are we clean?
Yeah.
Are we good? So yes,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow. So you basically you grew up knowing God, but of course, like many of us Christians, we kind of veer away because life
Hmm.
takes a hold of us. So what brought you like back to Him?
So I would say, like in 2018,
Hmm.
I was with a group of friends,
Hmm.
and we wanted to do what we call a woman's night out, right? So we
Okay.
started getting together um, once a week, having a nice little time. And then at some point, we started talking about God, and we call ourselves trying to do a Bible study.
Okay, I love that. Yeah.
Um, and then somewhere it didn't quite work out. Um, and then in 2019, maybe that may have spilled into 2019. But I know when COVID happened, um, I joined a women's ministry online because everybody was shut down.
Great.
We had to stay inside. So there was this young lady that started her own women's ministry, and I started tapping into that and still tap into that to this day. So I think she started in 2020
Awesome.
and is continuing to do that to this very day.
Awesome. I'm happy that the first Bible study didn't like kind of push you away from like joining
No,
the other. Yeah, because a lot of times when we have negative experiences as Christians, we kind of like push the whole, run away from the whole faith. So I'm so glad that you didn't allow that to kind of.
yeah, and I think I also not only just the Bible study with the women, but I also was listening to sermons online, and it was just one pastor who it resonated. Everything that he was saying just kept me locked in,
Right.
and I kept going back for more. So I think that, along with the women's ministry, prevented any negative things that may have happened
Awesome.
to
Good.
interfere with me wanting to dig deeper into Christ.
Good for you. It's also so important to keep a circle of people that are like-minded because if you don't have that, it's difficult. Because I remember like just the church hurt and just navigating that without having like a strong group of people backing me, and it just pushed me
Yes,
from like now that I've like had that stuff by myself, like had that time by myself, built my relationship with God. Now I'm better able to go into a situation like that and not be offended,
yes.
like let let things just push me out of church. So, but I will do another segment on like church hurt another time. But okay, all right. So, but I know I consider Mrs. Niokie a spiritual sister, and during that time. You experience a lot like as you were building a relationship with God. I think like people don't realize like when you're building a relationship with God, He allows you to see yourself and he starts to reveal a
Yes,
whole bunch of things about you in any situation that you're in. So do you want to kind of like share that?
yes. So I was actually dating this guy who I kind of felt like something wasn't right, but you know, I didn't want to believe, oh no, it can't be. It must be me, right? But something kept nagging at me and was like, mm-mm,
Holy
mm-mm.
Spirit. I feel like it's the Holy Spirit.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Mhm.
So I prayed one day and I said, okay, God, if he's not for me, I'll gladly give him up.
Right.
Gladly. And a situation happened to where there was a point of no return to where I walked away and I have no intention on going back and don't care to go back. And it's almost been a year, honestly. When I look back now, I was like, oh God, it's already been a year. Um, and I think God allowed me to see things in myself when detaching myself from that person. So I got on my knees and was praying more and was asking for more discernment, more clarification. Um, Also seeing a therapist.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with a therapist seeing a therapist now.
Oh, not
Um, so seeing a therapist and being tapped in and trying to be self-aware and working on the actual things that I thought I worked on from some childhood trauma that
yes.
kind of resurfaced during that phase. And also, I had experienced death. My father had passed away at the same time. So there was a lot of emotional stuff coming up that I had to deal with. And I will tell you this, had it not been for my belief
Right.
and the connection and the relationship I have with God, it probably would have deterred me from fighting and moving forward for myself.
Wow. 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 And you mentioned childhood trauma. So a lot of that is linked to why you allowed this relationship to continue. Just the unresolved childhood trauma. And then you mentioned your father.
Yes, it was some things that like abandonment issues
Right.
um that started showing its face, you know. Um and then as a therapist myself, processing all these things and looking at how um I was allowing that to impact what my decision making, the
Right.
choices that I was making. Like, girl, um, when you see a red flag, you already know.
Right.
So it shouldn't take you one, two, and three when you already know no the red flag number one.
Right. Right. The thing about abandonment
Uh,
issues, because I too suffer abandonment issues, is that we don't realize that we unconsciously seek that in other men. Right.
yes,
It's like
yes,
it's like if they're like unavailable, it's like, oh, it's okay. And it's kind of like,
hmm
but
the
that's
same excuse you gave your dad. Now you're giving a
the
companion.
relationship, right? And it's not
Yes,
healthy, right? So once you see that
yes,
the person is unavailable or not wanting to be available to you, because there's a difference between being busy and unavailable. But
absolutely,
when they're
absolutely.
willingly
There's a difference.
unavailable, that means there may be some abandonment issues from your childhood that's tied to that.
Hmm.
So we tend to linger that. It's so true. It's like that hopeless child that still wants their daddy to show up, but doesn't.
Yes,
And you may, as an adult, want this man to show up for you, but he doesn't.
right.
Wow. And then
Yep.
you mentioned at the same time that your dad passed away. I'm sorry to hear.
Yes. So yeah, and I was dealing with grief, and I thought it's crazy because I was like, as a therapist, I know what to do for grief.
Right.
You know, I talk to clients about grief all the time, but didn't even realize that I was going through the stages of grief as well.
Mm.
And the end of that relationship, when I start to do some self reflection and some checks, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm still dealing with my dad's grief.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
So yeah, and I decided then to go get some grief counseling
good.
so that I can process. And the other thing too is not working on yourself and recognizing and being able to do the work so that you don't carry that load into another relationship.
Right. Prior to. Right. Yeah. I don't
Yes,
realize
yes.
that because a lot of times people are like, well, if I go into this relationship, I feel like this person can fix me. Nah,
No.
they only maximize what needs to be fixed. They don't necessarily.
Yes.
So it's so
Yes.
imperative that we are willing to constantly work on ourselves prior to inviting someone else in our lives. Because it's like literally two sets of problems coming together.
Absolutely. You know what I use the analogy I use in therapy is imagine having on a book bag and putting books in it, and then the
Right.
next relationship you put books in it, and then the
Right.
next relationship you put books in it, and you never remove the books.
Right. And it's just, yes, it's just a heavy load, like that's weighing you down,
Yes,
down, down, down. Right. It's such a good analogy. Right. And people don't realize how mentally tormented you become carrying all that load
absolutely. Absolutely.
and spiritually, because it's all connected.
Spiritually.
It's all,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then when it doesn't work out, who do we blame? God.
Mm-hmm.
We blame the person that we didn't even go to in the first place for advice,
Right.
talk to.
Right. When he was telling you all along, like, sis, this is
But
not
yeah,
it.
yeah, he put the Holy Spirit inside of us for a reason. But I feel like
Yes.
our emotional trauma like tries to trump the Holy Spirit. And then also
Yes.
like as human beings, we want a sense of control. So we feel like
Yes.
if we like our thoughts can control what's going to happen, like our feelings are going to be able to control. No, like we have to like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So what would you like? What do you want to share to like our viewers that are watching that are like having a spiritual like are on their spiritual journey but are currently in toxic relationships? What do you want to share to them?
I would say if it's impacting the way that you are progressing in your journey with God, then you may have to step back from that relationship. You may have to take a pause. You may have to take a break, so that you can um, focus on your spiritual journey. Anytime something takes you away from, or it starts to impact your relationship with God, that relationship does not do you any good.
That's good.
If anything, that relationship should help me grow spiritually.
That's good. That's good. That's some great advice. If anything, that relationship should help you grow spiritually. That's why when God talks about unequally yoked, I think that's what
Yes.
it's meaning. Like, are you making this relationship an idol or are you following me? Because a lot of times we make the men in our lives or the people that we really, really care
Mm,
about in our lives our God, right? So if
absolutely.
we're doing that, then of course we're not following the ways of the Lord. He's not the center of our lives. So it's a whole
Absolutely.
balance. Wow. But is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything?
I think that's it. But they can look me up on Facebook or Instagram and check out my pages.
Okay.
If you need a social worker or a therapist, contact me.
And what area are you located so they know to where to
I'm
contact?
in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. Thank you so much, Niokie, for giving us those nuggets. And I feel like someone is going to be helped today. And we may have a part two if she wants to dive deeper, you guys. So stay tuned.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.